So who's winning in a battle between the OG Charmed and the Charmed reboot? Before I share my thoughts, I want to know what you guys are thinking, so drop your ideas in the comments. With that being said, let's get into our parameters. The first is magical ability, basically which set of these witches has the most magical potential and the most magical prowess. The second criteria is hand-to-hand combat, which set of these witches is coming out on top if there was going to be a melee between the six sisters. Then the third set of criteria is battle IQ, basically which set of witches is the more resourceful of the two and how efficiently do they use what they have at their disposal. And different from the 1v1s, I added a fourth category, which is popularity. This one is completely open-ended. I just want to know what you guys are thinking about the OG versus the reboot and how you feel about the trio of sisters that we were given in the reboot. And that's going to take us to our second set of parameters, which is basically me just telling you guys that I am not considering any sort of enhancements to the Charmed ones that do not exist in their natural forms. There is one exception here with Macy, simply because she does have demon cells, giving her some demon abilities. But aside from this, I'm not considering any hollow forms, goddess forms, or source forms, or anything similar. And then the final one is that I am not considering anything from the comics, simply because I don't have the bandwidth to do so. With that being said, this takes us to our first criteria, which is magical ability. And for this category, I'm gonna have to give it to the Vera sisters. And this is simply because by intention and by design, the Vera sisters were written to be stronger than the OG Charm sisters. And so they are. They have all of the abilities of the OGs plus some. But there is one thing that I was reminded of by my good friend Sailor Turtle, and that is that the Vera sisters exist within a pocket universe of the OG Charmed ones. Now, I'm not entirely sure of what impact that might have on their overall abilities or their natural abilities, but what it definitely means is that in the 1v1, Phoebe is definitely much stronger in her premonition abilities than Maggie could ever be. But I still don't know how that would impact their powers as a whole, and if it would make a difference overall, aside from Phoebe being able to possibly foresee the battles. So for that could definitely sway the tide here. However, if we discount that, I don't think it's going to change much. Not to mention, the Vera sisters have far more usability with their powers than the Charmed ones do, and they have less limitations with it. And if you guys want to review the 1v1s, please check out the Versus playlist. Now this takes us to our second criteria, which is hand-to-hand combat. For this category, it's definitely going to end up in a draw. I can definitely see there being a lot of bloodshed and at least 1 or 2 casualties. Now for me, the first witch to go is definitely going to be Piper Halliwell. And many of you guys pointed out in the 1v1 that Piper doesn't actually experience much hand-to-hand combat. However, she is in a lot of battles, and so I guess that makes it look like it. But between her and her sisters, Piper experiences the least amount of hand-to-hand. As a result, at least in this particular category, she's going to be weaker. With that being said, I can also see the 4 remaining sisters being Prue, Phoebe, Maggie, and Macy. And this is because Macy, with her demon blood, has the ability to heal faster. Prue is definitely quicker on the draw, which is something that a lot of you pointed out, in addition to my friend Sailor Turtle. And then for Phoebe, she's obviously fighting all the time. This is the sister that has to rely most on her physical gifts in order to supplement the lack of active gifts like her sisters have. Then we have Maggie, who might actually give Phoebe a run for her money. This is an expert swordsman. She has master swordsmanship. If we're including weapons in this battle, I think it would actually come to be a bloodbath between Maggie and Phoebe. And then as far as Mel goes, if somebody were to die second, I can see it being her, simply for the same reasons that Piper dies first. But this would be a battle nonetheless, and one that neither side would come out on top of. As a result, they would either go home and reevaluate the situation, or they would all die right there. Which leads us to our third category, which is battle IQ. Now this is one that I have to give to the OG Charmed, and this is simply because through sheer amount of battles, they have more experience. Not to mention, while Piper might not be the best in hand-to-hand combat, she is far superior in spell making and creating spells in a faster amount of time than any of the Vera sisters combined. Now, this isn't to say that the Vera sisters aren't smart, especially Macy here, but her resourcefulness with spell work is not as evident as Piper's. Not to mention you have the other sisters with their battle experience. Phoebe's had experience outside of the Charmed ones. Vera's sisters have had experience by themselves as well, but I don't think they've had the number of battles to be able to do much against the Charmed sisters. But I do think it would be relatively close. If they had to rely on just magic alone or hand-to-hand combat alone, that would be enough. But as far as the intelligence portion of battle intelligence, they just do not have the level of experience, nor did they fight the level of foes that the Charmed ones did. Now, the last category is one that is completely open-ended, but I want to know what you guys are thinking as well. That is the popularity category. But I want you guys to tell me what you think about it. Personally, I am partial to the OGs. However, I definitely think that the reboot Charmed got a bad rep and they had a really false start. They didn't have the buy-in of the OG cast, which definitely dampened the perception for the audiences. But at its core, this really would have been a wonderful show, and I definitely think it was picking up in season 4, despite the fact that the fumble definitely made it hard to watch. But I will see you guys in the next video where I talk about Paige and Kayla as opposed to Macy and Prue, and we'll do another 3 versus 3 in that capacity.